I stood by the doorway after the family reunion, still hearing the echoes of laughter outside as everyone left in small groups. My feet were tired, my back ached, and all I wanted was a quiet moment to breathe. I pulled out my phone to check a message, but the screen flashed something that made my heart stop. My account balance. N0 zeros? For a second, I thought my eyes were playing tricks. I blinked hard, then refreshed. Still N0, 0. My throat tightened. That account held years of savings. Hospital money for Mama Ruth. Emergency money for myself. Everything I had been keeping safe, gone. I felt a cold wave wash over me as my mind raced. I opened the transfer list. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. One transfer. To Kelvin. I looked up slowly. Kelvin was sitting on the couch like a king who had just won a battle. Nora sat beside him with her hands in her lap, eyes down. Tari stood near the wall, watching me closely. Uncle Jonah was fussing with his shoes, humming like nothing in the world was wrong. I walked closer, holding my phone. Kelvin, did you touch my account? He didn't even pretend to feel guilty. He smirked, leaned back, and put his arm around Nora. Of course I did, he said. We needed it more than you. His voice was full of pride, as if he expected applause. My knees felt weak. The room spun for a moment. You drained everything? I whispered. He shrugged. You'll be fine, Amara. You always land on your feet. But me? I have responsibilities. A man has to provide. I felt something inside me break, but not in the way Kelvin expected. It wasn't fear. It wasn't helplessness. It was a strange, powerful calm. I tightened my grip on my bag and looked at him with a steady face. Then you won't mind what's coming next, I said softly. The room went quiet. Not because they were scared, at least not yet. They simply didn't expect me to push back. Kelvin scoffed and waved his hand like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Nora forced a small smile. Uncle Jonah chuckled under his breath. Mama Ruth, who had been in the kitchen, stepped out holding a tray, confused. They thought I was joking. They thought I was harmless. They thought I would swallow the insult like always. But before anyone could reply to what I said, it happened. A loud, heavy bang shook the entire house. The windows rattled. The floor vibrated under my feet. Mama Ruth nearly dropped the tray. Nora gasped and held Kelvin's arm. Tari stepped forward instantly, her eyes sharp. What is that? She whispered. Kelvin stood up, suddenly unsure of himself. Who's at the door? Before anyone could move, the front door flew open, slamming against the wall with a force that made Mama Ruth scream and Uncle Jonah stumble backward. Everyone froze. And I stood there, calm and steady, my hand still on my bag, watching everything unfold exactly the way I knew it would. The morning of the reunion had started peacefully, long before anything went wrong. I woke up early, packed the food I cooked the night before, and tied my hair back as the sun slowly filled my room. I always arrive first for family gatherings, partly to help Mama Ruth, partly to avoid the noise that came with everyone else. When I reached the house, Mama Ruth was already sweeping the front step. Amara, my dear, you're early as always, she said with a warm smile. I hugged her and carried the bags inside. The living room smelled of soap and fresh air. The windows were wide open, and soft music played from an old speaker. For a few minutes, everything felt normal. I helped Mama Ruth set the table, cut vegetables, and arrange plates. She kept telling me to sit and rest, but I liked keeping my hands busy. An hour later, the piece ended. Kelvin and Nora arrived in a loud car, music blasting as if they wanted the whole street to know they were here. Kelvin stepped out wearing dark glasses even though the sun was behind clouds. Nora followed him quietly, holding her purse with both hands. Kelvin lifted his chin and waved at everyone like a celebrity arriving at a show. "There they go," Tari whispered beside me, already watching him with narrowed eyes. Inside the house, Kelvin walked around making comments about everything. "New curtains? Mama Ruth, these ones look cheap," he said. She smiled awkwardly, pretending not to hear the insult. Nora stayed close to me in the kitchen, helping a little but mostly just sighing softly. She looked tired, but she didn't say anything. Every few minutes, Kelvin would call her name loudly, telling her to bring his phone, his drink, his charger. Anything he felt he shouldn't get himself. I noticed small things that didn't sit right. Kelvin kept glancing at me whenever I pulled out my phone. Nora avoided my eyes each time I caught her watching him. Tari raised her brows at me once, as if asking silently, "Are you okay?" I thought it was just the usual tension. I didn't know he was planning something much deeper. When the rest of the family arrived, the house filled with loud voices, laughter, and clinking plates. Uncle Jonah danced in the living room, telling old stories no one asked for. Children ran around with crumbs on their faces. I stayed by the kitchen doorway, happy to watch from a distance. Kelvin took every chance to show off, talking about deals he claimed to close, projects he had coming up soon, and plans that sounded bigger each time he repeated them. At one point, he tapped my shoulder. "Amara, you still working at that same place? You should be doing more with your life," he said loudly, making two cousins laugh. I swallowed my annoyance and forced a small smile. I didn't like trouble. Nora touched his arm gently. "Please stop," she whispered. But Kelvin brushed her off like a fly. As the day went on, I noticed Tari watching Kelvin carefully. Every time he passed behind me, every time he reached across the table where my phone lay, every time Nora looked away too quickly, Tari's eyes followed. She leaned in at one point and whispered, "Keep your things close today. Something feels off." I didn't understand what she meant then. But now, looking back, I should have listened harder. By evening, the reunion seemed normal on the surface, full of laughter, loud voices, and plates of food. But beneath it, small cracks were forming. Kelvin was too confident. Nora was too quiet. And I was too trusting. All of that would lead to what happened after everyone left. But at that moment, none of us knew what the day was truly preparing us for. As the reunion went on, I kept noticing small things that didn't feel right. They weren't loud signs or dramatic moments, just quiet shifts that most people would ignore. But when you look back, you realize they were warnings. It started in the kitchen. I was helping Mama Ruth wash some plates when I felt someone behind me. I turned and saw Kelvin standing very close, pretending to reach for a glass. His eyes weren't on the shelf. They were on my phone sitting on the counter. He smiled when he noticed me looking. "Relax, Amara. I'm not touching anything," he said. But something in his voice felt strange. Too smooth, too gentle for a man who spent the whole day making insulting jokes. When he left the kitchen, Nora quickly stepped in and took the glass from his hand. Her movements were shaky. She didn't look up at me, but I saw her lips pressed tightly together, like she was holding back something. I asked quietly, "Are you all right?" She nodded too fast. "I'm fine, just tired." But she didn't look tired. She looked worried. Later, when I stepped outside to get air, Tari followed me. She didn't say anything at first. She just stood beside me and stared into the yard like she was reading something in the shadows. After a moment, she said, "He is watching you too much today." I frowned. "Kelvin, why would he watch me?" Tari shrugged, but her eyes stayed sharp. "When people act bold all of a sudden, it is because they feel safe doing it. He feels safe today. That is the part that troubles me. I tried to brush it off. Maybe he's just trying to show off. Tari shook her head. No, this is different. She didn't push further. She simply walked inside and left me with her words hanging in the air. Throughout the afternoon, I kept thinking about my relationship with Kelvin. For years, I had helped the family quietly. I never told anyone when I paid for things. Mama Ruth's medicine, small repairs in the house, school fees for 2 younger cousins. Kelvin had been the biggest burden. He always came asking for temporary support and never returned a single naira. Mama Ruth once told me, "Forgive him. He is struggling. One day he will change." And I believed her. I believed if I helped enough, he would learn. But the way he walked around the reunion, chest out, voice loud, acting like he owned everything, it showed me he never saw my help as kindness. He saw it as weakness. As the day moved on, I caught him glancing at me again, this time with a strange smile. Like he had solved a puzzle I didn't know existed. Nora kept avoiding my eyes. Tari kept watching both of them. At one point, I entered the living room to find Uncle Jonah telling a wild story about a snake he once fought in the village. Everyone laughed. Kelvin sat in the corner tapping on Nora's phone. She sat beside him, twisting her fingers, biting her lip, looking everywhere except toward him. I didn't think much of it then. But when I saw her turn her face slightly and wipe a quick tear before anyone noticed, my stomach dropped. Something was wrong. Something was coming. But I didn't know what it was yet. I only knew one thing. The small warnings were no longer small in my mind. They were growing louder, clearer, stronger, and I should have paid even closer attention. By the time the sun started to go down, the house was full of the warm smell of food and the soft chatter of tired relatives. On the outside, everything looked normal, but inside me, something felt off. The small signs I had noticed throughout the day were no longer whispers. They were warnings I could feel in my chest. I just didn't know how close the danger truly was. Mama Ruth asked me to help her serve the last round of food. I placed my phone on the counter, wiped my hands, and carried 2 bowls to the dining table. I wasn't gone for more than a minute. When I returned, Nora was standing near the counter. Her hands were shaking. She tried to smile when she saw me, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "You need help?" I asked gently. She shook her head and stepped aside so quickly she almost bumped into the cabinet. Something in her movement made me look at the counter again. My phone had been moved. Just slightly, but enough for me to notice. I felt a small sting in my stomach. Before I could ask her anything, Kelvin walked in with that same overconfident stride. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at Nora. He went straight to the fridge and opened it, humming loudly as if trying to distract everyone. Nora glanced at him, then at me, then down at the floor. She whispered, "Amara, please don't be upset later." But she spoke so quietly I almost missed it. Before I could ask her what she meant, she hurried out of the kitchen like she was running from her own words. I picked up my phone slowly and checked it. Nothing seemed wrong. No notifications, no alerts. But the uneasy feeling inside me grew heavier. I remembered Tari's warning. I remembered Kelvin's strange confidence. I remembered how he kept watching me earlier. After dinner, some people began leaving. I stayed behind to help clean up. Kelvin and Nora sat in the living room, speaking in low whispers. Nora's expression was tight, her fingers tapping nervously on her knees. Kelvin leaned back, looking too relaxed, like someone who had already completed a mission. When Mama Ruth asked me to help her take some plates to the sink, I placed my phone on the table again. As I carried the dishes away, Kelvin walked past me. He wasn't even hiding it anymore. He stood near the table for a few seconds, pretending to look at a picture frame. His hand brushed across the table. It looked innocent. It wasn't. Tari walked in at that exact moment. She froze when she saw Kelvin standing there. He noticed her and instantly stepped away from the table. Tari's eyes moved from his face to the spot where my phone lay. Her jaw tightened. He smiled at her. Not a warm smile. A warning smile. "Relax," he said softly. "No one is touching anything." But Tari's eyes said she didn't believe him. When she walked to me later, she whispered, "Keep your phone on you. Don't leave it behind again." I nodded, but I still didn't know how bad things were. The truth hit me only when everyone finally left the house. The moment I sat down and checked my account, every single naira was gone. Not some. Not half. Everything. The transfer had been done using my own banking PIN. And suddenly, all the small moments throughout the day connected like pieces of a puzzle. Kelvin standing too close behind me. Nora crying silently. My phone being moved. Kelvin's hand brushing the table. Tari's sharp eyes catching him standing where he shouldn't be. He had been watching me the entire day. He had memorized my PIN when I unlocked my phone earlier. And while I helped Mama Ruth in the kitchen, he used Nora's phone to transfer my entire savings to himself. Nora knew. She didn't stop him. She didn't warn me. She only whispered a weak apology much later. Too late to save anything. Kelvin thought I would accept it. He thought I would swallow the pain like always. He thought I would stay quiet because family must forgive. He didn't realize he had crossed a line I never allowed anyone to cross. He didn't know I had already prepared something long before the reunion ended. And now, that loud bang at the door was the start of everything he never expected. The door slammed open so hard the walls trembled. Everyone froze where they stood. Mama Ruth grabbed her chest. Nora pulled her legs up on the couch. Kelvin's proud face collapsed into confusion. But I stayed exactly where I was, standing beside the table, bag still in my hand, heart beating slow and steady. 2 uniformed officers stepped into the living room. Not shouting, not aggressive, just firm and focused. The taller one looked around the room before his eyes settled on Kelvin. "Good evening," he said. "We're here for Mr. Kelvin." Nora gasped. Mama Ruth whispered a prayer under her breath. Uncle Jonah dropped the remote on the floor. Kelvin pointed at his own chest like he didn't understand English. "Me? What did I do?" The officer lifted a small folder. "We received a report earlier today." His eyes shifted to me for a brief second. Evidence was submitted. Kelvin's voice cracked. "Report? What report? Who reported anything?" I stepped forward, not shaking, not angry, just clear. I did. Every head in the room turned to me. Kelvin stared like he was seeing a stranger. "You? Amara, don't joke. We're family." I nodded calmly. "Yes, family. The same family you stole from." He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His face grew pale and tight around the edges. He looked at Nora for support, but she covered her mouth with both hands, tears sliding down her cheeks. I continued. "I knew something was wrong from the way you kept following me today. I didn't know exactly what you were planning, but I knew enough to protect myself." The shorter officer stepped beside Kelvin. "Sir, you're required to come with us." Kelvin shook his head wildly. "Guy, wait. Amara, explain. You can't do this to me. We needed the money." I met his eyes without blinking. "You didn't ask for help. You stole it. You watched me type my PIN. You used Nora's phone to transfer everything I saved for years. You decided I didn't matter." He swallowed hard, sweat forming on his forehead. "When you think someone is weak," I said softly, "you forget they can think ahead." Earlier that afternoon, long before Kelvin made his move, I had quietly recorded him hovering near my phone, asking suspicious questions and standing by the table pretending to look at pictures. Tari had helped me gather enough proof. I didn't know he would drain everything, but I knew Kelvin was planning something with my information, so I filed a precautionary report. Just in case. That, just in case, had become the reason Kelvin couldn't escape now. Mama Ruth started crying. "Please, can we talk about this? We are family. Let's settle it here." The officer shook his head. "Ma, the matter has already been filed. He will have to come with us. Investigations will continue." Kelvin lunged forward, but the officers held him firmly. "You set me up, Amara," he shouted. "You planned this." I looked at him calmly. "No, you planned everything. You just forgot I could protect myself." Nora sobbed harder. "Amara, I tried to warn you. I didn't know he would go that far. I'm sorry." I nodded once. "I know, Nora, but this is his doing." Kelvin shouted my name again and again as they led him outside, his voice cracking with fear. Not pride this time. When the door closed behind them, silence filled the room. Mama Ruth sank onto the couch. Uncle Jonah rubbed his forehead. Nora cried quietly with her hands covering her face. Tari moved close to me and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing," she whispered. I let out a long breath I had held inside all day. No shouting, no drama, just a simple truth. Sometimes the quiet one is not the weakest. Sometimes she's simply the one who knows exactly when to act. And today I chose to act. Kelvin was taken away, and for the first time in years, the house felt peaceful. Mama Ruth apologized through tears, promising never to overlook my pain again. Nora hugged me tightly, saying she would rebuild her life without secrets or fear. Tari smiled, proud that I finally stood up for myself. As I stepped outside, the cool evening breeze felt like a new beginning. I didn't win by shouting or fighting. I won by refusing to be silent. And in that moment, I knew I would never let anyone treat my kindness as weakness again. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more interesting stories.